Hello everybody and welcome to the course on how to conduct a really efficient and successful literature search for academic success. And today we are going to identify where it is the most appropriate place to begin your searching for your subject, how to go about ensuring that you are creating an effective search strategy to actually find the research that you need in the most time efficient way possible. We are then going to both run a search in a dedicated database and refine that based upon the searches that you return using some advanced search techniques that I will introduce to you. The next stage is to obtain the full text of the article or the PDF of the research paper, and I'm going to take a look at some browser extensions and other techniques for getting access to the full text. And finally, if you have a requirement to record and present your search, I'm going to show you a shortcut in how to do that. So you may have the question, what exactly are research databases? Now, they enable you to see what has been published in the area you are researching, and they contain detailed records of thousands of journal articles, which means that you don't have to search each journal individually or know all the journals that are relevant in your field. So they include book references and conference proceedings, book chapters, dissertations, and a host of other content. And the reason why it's really important to use individual databases instead of relying on Google Scholar and Google Search is that it can help you bring back more relevant results much more quickly, and there tend to be a range of databases available to you that are subject specific. So it's about choosing the appropriate one for your discipline or your research query. So some databases, including PubMed and Web of Science as examples, contain a host of content from individual journals. And these journals contain other information such as we've mentioned, conferences, government reports, and so on. And within them you will find different citation information. So who's the author of an article? When was it published? What's the title? And what is the article about? Which you can find by reviewing the abstract of the article, and where possible access the full text to read the whole document. Now, I understand that databases can seem quite a daunting concept to use and to get used to, but rest assured you already have experience in using databases in your everyday life. So no doubt you have possibly used Amazon recently or Google, and that's what a database is really. In its simplest form, it's an online collection of information where you enter your search terms and then look at the results. So you have the ability to use these effectively and efficiently for your research. So let's have a look at an example of what types of databases are available to you and you may have heard of in the past. There are databases such as PubMed, Web of Science, perhaps Science Direct, and the more specific and targeted databases such as PsycArticles or PsycInfo, which are for psychological topics, Medline or CINAHL, which are for medical and allied health professions, and JSTOR perhaps, which is more focused predominantly within the humanities. Important to note that you may have access to some of these databases if you are studying at a university or college via your library. So do get in contact with your library to check what is available for you. And I'm going to conduct my demonstrations on one particular database today. However, I would encourage you to not rely purely on one database, but to consider your topic and your question and choose the most appropriate database for your research requirements. So top tip, do check with your library for their subscription and assess what it provides you access with. Again, a few examples on the screen now, such as Scopus, IEEE Explore, Science Direct. But for the benefit of everyone taking this course, I am going to provide demonstrations using a freely available database so as not to disadvantage anybody. Now rest assured that all of the search techniques and strategies that we discover today can be used in all databases. You may just need to check their help section to find out exactly how. And if you are interested in learning how to use Google Scholar for your research, do check out my course, which is dedicated to equipping you with the best possible skills to advance your research using Google Scholar. A brief overview of some of the more popular freely available databases. PubMed is a very useful database if you are in the biomedical and life sciences area, containing access to over 33 million citations of journal articles and online books. And we're going to perform our searches using PubMed today, but there are other options available that are freely available, one of which is Semantic Scholar, which helps you find relevant results in a very timely fashion using artificial intelligence, and the link to these databases are included in the course. Another option available to you is a database called the Directory of Open Access Journals. Now, all of the content that you find within the Open Access Journals directory is freely available via open access, so that can be accessed completely free of charge to you. Core is another freely available database, the world's largest collection of open access research papers, which are curated just for you and you can use using your search strategies. Finally, and last but not least, Google Scholar, which many of you will be familiar with. And if you are interested in getting the very best out of Google and Google Scholar, I have created a brand new course which will teach you the winning tips and tricks to use Google for your research, from the very basics of how to access and use Google's advanced search, some super quick command search techniques, and power user tips to supercharge your research. So do check out that course after you've completed this one. Now, even before you begin to access a database and conduct your searches, it is super important to have a plan. Now, without a plan, you're setting yourself up to fail, and it will ultimately take you longer to find the results that you're looking for, and you'll quite possibly end up repeating the same searches again and again and becoming very frustrated with your search process. So planning is essential. Now, how do you go about doing that? We firstly already know of some options when it comes to searching. Now, databases can be actually huge, and you need to be prepared and specific about what information you want to find. So therefore it makes sense to plan your search before you start and ask yourself, what information do I want to find out? So you will all have your own research topics or scenarios, assignments or questions that you need to break down and plan before you start your searching, because you need to know exactly what you will be searching for. So the first step is very simply to take your question that you need to answer or your topic and to identify the keywords from that question or topic that we'll be using in your search. So as an example, you need to think about the topic. This one is on the role of telehealth during the COVID-19 outbreak. Now, taking the time now to plan and identify your keywords will save you time in the long run. Firstly, we are not going to put in the whole question into a database, perhaps like we would in Google. Sure, you'll find some relevant results, but you'll likely be missing out on a lot and getting a lot of irrelevant results back from your searches. So take that question and remove any filler words or unnecessary words like the, what, or instructions to discuss or analyze or compare. So looking at our example, I would take the following two keywords as my main topics of telehealth and COVID-19. Those are the two that I'm going to focus on. So if you have your question in front of you now, you can write it down and circle the keywords that you think are the most important for your research. The next stage of this is to take those and think about synonyms, which is a funny word really, isn't it? Now, When we're thinking about our keywords, we need to remember that people can refer to the same concepts or ideas in very different ways. So with the illusion image that I'm sharing with you now, some people can see the same thing in different ways. So when I look at this image, I see a young lady looking away. You may, however, see an older lady with a headscarf looking to the left. So what exactly am I getting at here? Well, basically, as we all see things in different ways, we need to remember that we all refer to things in different ways too. Now this means it's crucial to think of what we call synonyms for our keywords. Simply put, synonyms are different words with the same meaning. And if we don't think of these alternative words, we can overly restrict our searches based purely on the terminology we are using and limit our results and possibly miss really important research. So synonyms could be similar terms or meanings or perhaps abbreviations. And that would be the next step. You've identified your keywords, in our scenario, telehealth and COVID-19, and then we're thinking of our synonyms. So telehealth could more broadly be referred to in the area of telemedicine, and there are different ways of spelling that. There are many different ways, and I haven't listed them all, of referring to COVID-19, be that coronavirus or the specific strand. So it's really important to take your time and think about this and write them down on your piece of paper after you've identified your keywords, because searching only for one word for your concept will not necessarily bring you all of the results that you need, and sometimes none. And remember, not everyone uses the same terminology for the same idea. So one author may use a very different term to another author, and it's important to spend the time now to try and ensure that we are capturing those terms. So we have our keywords and we have our synonyms, which is great, but we now need to think about how to use and combine these words to make a really efficient search strategy. Now in this section, I'm going to introduce you to some search techniques that enable you to combine your terms and some tips to narrow or broaden your searches. And these techniques will make your search much more efficient and save you a lot of time. So it might be useful for you to make some notes as we go through this section on combining your keywords. Now, to help us combine our keywords and our synonyms, we can make use of something called Boolean operators, which is a very funny name, and it doesn't really matter what they're called as long as you understand that these search techniques are designed to help you to get better results. And there are 3 Boolean operators available to you. They are and, or, not. And I will explain to you in more detail shortly how exactly these work. But firstly, and gives you the ability to be more specific and narrow your results, or allows you to go the other way and give you more results to broaden your results out, whilst finally not enables you to exclude certain keywords from your set of results. So Boolean operators and, or, not will be available to you from within a database, so you don't have to remember them, but it's good to have an understanding of how they work. So the Boolean operator and is used to join words or phrases when you want both or all of the search terms to be included in your results. So in the example here, we see we are interested in COVID-19 and telehealth. So by adding and, we are telling the database that we're only interested in results that mention both of these terms. So we're not interested in results about COVID-19 that don't mention telehealth, and we're also not interested in telehealth unless it includes COVID-19. So from this diagram we can see that this will reduce the number of your results. This is really helpful, as it means you can make your results much more targeted and relevant. So let's have a look at how you might use the and operator in practice in a database. For this example, I'm going to be using the database PubMed, which is available for you to search for free and searches a range of research output from the biomedical and life sciences literature. So in our example, we were going to search for COVID-19, and I'm going to conduct that search on its own. And as you can see here from my list of results, we are experiencing a high number of results in return, which we would expect. And my task is to combine my first keyword using the AND operator with my second keyword, telehealth, and run that search. And you will notice now that my results have reduced. However, that means that my results are much more focused and relevant to my query, as I have been much more specific through the use of the AND operator to identify the keywords that I expect to appear in my set of results. The second operator that we're going to learn about is the OR search operator. Now this will enable you to include all of your articles that contain either word and or both words. So it's used for finding your synonyms, your alternative terms or phrases, and this is going to allow you to yield more results than if you search for only one concept. So for example, if I'm looking for telehealth or telemedicine, this would be me telling the database that I wish to return results that include either both of these terms or one of those terms. So let's have a look at how that works in practice using PubMed. Firstly, I'm going to search for the term telehealth to give you an idea of the impact of using the OR operator has. So my search for telehealth has returned this amount of results. And if I wish to broaden that, I can put in the OR operator, either in capitals or lowercase, it doesn't matter. And as you can see here, it's given me a suggestion which I would like to take of telemedicine. That will update my results. And you can see here it has increased my results to that number. You can continue to add more of your similar terms using the OR operator, but being cautious, if you add too many, you're going to run your search much too broadly and possibly end up with irrelevant results. So I've added the third term there. Clicking on search will improve my results a little bit by increasing the numbers, so you can see that having the OR operator is going to allow you to broaden your results by returning more papers. The final operator that you have available is to use the NOT search operator. Now NOT is used to exclude a word or a phrase from your search results, although it is wise to use this term sparingly since you may end up eliminating irrelevant results without meaning to do so. So in the example, if we were searching for information and research on hand washing, but we were not interested in PPE, we could say not PPE, and then any papers that include that term should be omitted from your set of results. So let's have a look at how that works in practice. For my first search, I'm going to search for hand washing on its own, and then I'm going to add the operator not, and then the term that I wish to exclude. So we have currently this amount of results, and you can see here it has reduced it ever so slightly, so you can see the effect that using the NOT operator can have in reducing the amount of searches from your results list and making them more targeted upon the research that you're hoping to return. There are some other techniques that are going to be useful for you to return relevant results, one of which is simply called phrase searching. And that will allow you to take a phrase, so in this example appetite disorder, and you would simply place some double quotation marks around that phrase to ensure that that term appears in that exact order. So by using phrase searching, we are telling the database that we want results that contain the term appetite disorder exactly. We are not interested in results that just talk about appetite in no relation to the term disorder. So we are very insistent that it must appear together as the phrase appetite disorder. Running our search again, firstly for appetite disorder, and noting the amount of results that are being returned, I will then place the double quotation mark around the term. So by being much more focused and specific, clicking on search again will reflect that fact in the results that I am then returned. Truncation is giving you the ability to look for other related, relevant words for your searches that you do not have to type in yourself. Now, for example, if I was looking for something related to therapy and I wanted to include different endings of that term, I could state therap and then the asterisk symbol. By typing that in, the database would know to search for that and varying endings of that word. So I would be returning results for therapy, therapist, therapies, therapeutically, and so on, all by only entering the term therap followed by an asterisk. So it's going to save you time in having to type out a complete search string using the OR operator. So for example, we might have had to say therapy or therapist or therapies or therapeutically and so on. By just typing in therap followed by the asterisk symbol, the database is going to do the hard work for you, and also means that you may discover other research for terms that perhaps you hadn't considered or been aware of in your search. Truncation is therefore going to expand the number of results you're getting because we're looking for varying endings of that particular term. Another option available to you is the wildcard character represented by the hash sign, which matches one optional character. Now, to use this, as in the example on the screen, you can enter your search terms and place the hashtag where there is an alternate spelling which might contain an extra character. And this can be very useful for variations in spelling, for example the US and UK variations of pediatric, and allows you to find both of those terms without having to enter both of them in your searches. Now, with all of these search techniques, you might find that they're not useful for the particular search that you're running, but it's important to have an awareness that they exist and how they work so that you can really adapt and tailor your searches for success. So at the point that you are ready to run your search in a database, you've done a lot of hard work, you have planned your search, identifying your keywords, your synonyms, you have the awareness of the various search techniques that you can use to combine your search terms to find the results that you need for your research. Now, a few thoughts before we begin to run our search: that not every topic will have many or any variations of alternative terms or your synonyms, so be aware of that. You can use your own professional knowledge and judgment to decide how in-depth you want to go into the search process and the planning and identifying your keywords and your terms. We spoke about avoiding the temptation to type your question into the search box in a database, as this is unsystematic method of searching and will return you too few relevant results. And it can be very useful to carry out what we call a scoping search first. So perhaps look at your library collection if you're studying, or identify an up-to-date textbook on your chosen subject area, which can help familiarize you with the subject and the terminology used by academic publications before you dive into a very specific database. So we're going to take our plan and combine it. So this will be our search strategy. So we identified our keywords related to COVID-19 and telemedicine, and we're going to look at taking this and putting it into a database and running our search. So we have COVID-19 or coronavirus, so that's our Boolean OR operator. We have the use of phrase searching represented by the double quotation marks, and then we're going to combine that first concept with AND, our Boolean operator AND, to search for our second concept around telemedicine and telehealth. And again, you can see we are going to use some different techniques such as truncation, using the asterisks, once again phrase searching. So let's run that search together and take a look at the results that we get back. So once again, I'm going to use PubMed for demonstration purposes. Remember that other databases are available, and I encourage you to consider which is the most appropriate database for your research requirements. And all of the techniques that we use today are going to be transferable into the database of your choice. To start with, it may be sufficient for you to use the main search box, the single search box. However, any good database will also give you the ability to view their advanced search. So clicking on advanced will take you to what they call their PubMed Advanced Search Builder. I'm going to leave this to one side for the time being and focus on the main search to begin with. So I would simply copy and paste from my plan my first set of keywords related to COVID-19. I'm going to run that search. And at this point, I'm not going to review my searches because I have a second concept to add. So if I clear my search by clicking on the X, and then I will add my second concept from my plan, and this is related to telemedicine. And you can see here the benefit of having planned my search, that I can just enter them or copy and paste. Clicking on search will update my search to focus on these concepts. So that's great. And the second part of this is I'm going to look at that advanced search functionality, which is just below the main search box. And here you can see my search history, and most databases will give you the ability to view your search history. So what I'd like to do is combine search 1 and search 2, and as you recall, I can use the Boolean operator AND to do so. Now each database will look slightly different, but from PubMed I can look at the actions column and I can add my search 1 query to my query box, which is just here. And I'd also like to add my search 2 query using the actions. And I know that I want to combine search 1 and search 2, so I'm going to use the AND operator. And if you need a reminder of what that is and how it works, see the earlier module. Click on Add with AND. We'll add it again to my query box. So you can see here we have all of my keywords for COVID-19. Using the AND operator to search for research related, yes, to COVID-19, but also telemedicine and its various synonyms. From this point, I'm just going to click on search, and it will run my search and present me with a new search based on my search criteria, which appears in this box at the top here. And you can see here I'm getting fewer results, but they are much more relevant according to the query that I have entered. I won't spend too much time explaining the intricacies of the interface in PubMed because I'm sure that all of you will use a different database for your research strategies, but most of the time they will give you the option to re-rank your searches, perhaps by the most recent or the best match, or sometimes the most relevant, it calls it, most relevant papers returned. So once you have conducted a few searches, the process would be to review the results that you're getting back. You can see very clearly that we have some of my keywords appearing in my set of results in the title and in the abstract. And that's great because it's giving me an indication as to whether they're relevant and whether it's useful for me to click on the title and to explore that paper in a little bit more depth. So it gives you the title, the authors, which you can view and click on any of the names, and the abstract, the figures found within the paper, and some similar articles which also may be of interest to you, how many times the article that you're viewing has been cited by other papers, and also the reference list, which is a great place to find other relevant research for your studies. So if you find an article that is very interesting and useful, I do encourage you to have a look at the reference list and follow up on any of those that look useful to you. If the full text is available, you should see a link on the right hand side which provides you with that option, and I'll be talking about browser extensions to get the full text very quickly and easily later on in this course. And you can see here I have one installed now, the green padlock symbol, and by clicking that it will take me through to the PDF. And I will show you how that works later, but for now you can click on this link and that should also take you to the full text, but does involve a few extra steps to get there. So once you are reviewing your searches, I would be looking for obviously articles that you want to look at and read, but also trying to identify whether there are other keywords in the title or the abstract that that particular paper has used that might be useful for me to put back into my next search, as it's important to remember that my first search is not going to be my last search. Literature searching is very much a case of trial and error, and it's trying different combinations of keywords and utilizing your search techniques in the best possible way. So for example, this one uses the abbreviation TH for telehealth. I haven't included that in my search, so I may consider going back into my searches using the advanced search, and then I could, if I wanted to, edit this one, so I could add my query, and then I could add my other term of telehealth, TH, and then I could search that again. You can also specify where you would like to search for your keywords from. So if I were to limit my search terms to perhaps the title, it's highly likely that it would be a good way to quickly find research to begin with that is relevant to your question. Now, once you are happy with the search and your keywords and you've refined that, you will probably start to look at some filters or limiters. Now, different databases will look slightly different, but the main ones will apply, so you'll have the ability to limit your search to a particular date range if it's useful to do so. I simply dragged and dropped that, and it's updated my search between the years 2020 and 2022. You can see there are a range of other options available, including article type, publication date, and if you wish to see more, there is an additional filters field where you can specify the article type, amongst other useful limiters. And I would encourage you to only edit these limiters once you are happy with your search terms and the results that you are getting back. So to get back to your searches, you can either edit within this bar here or click on the advanced search and then either edit or rerun from this section. To give you an idea of what other databases look like, Semantic Scholar as the single search functionality, I have inputted my first search term. I'm going to click on search, and again it will bring back relevant results based on my query here. If I wanted to edit that term, I could go to the top of the page there and add in my second keyword or concept and then run my search again. And you can see here my results have been updated. These also have the ability to limit by certain fields of study or date range, for example, and also sort by relevance or citation count. You'll notice I'm getting less results here because PubMed is a more appropriate database for the search query that I am entering. Therefore, it is really important to consider where you're searching to determine the impact that will have on your search query. Now, Google Scholar could be a good place to start, but I would encourage you not to rely purely on Google Scholar, but to consider other databases available to you. But if you are interested in looking at using Google Scholar for your academic research, do make sure to check out my course. Another reason to use a database instead of Google Scholar is that it allows you to be very systematic in your searches and reproducible, which is very important if you are tasked with being systematic. So for example, if you are undertaking a literature search in health or medicine, you'll be required to present your search strategy. And it's all here in PubMed or another database very clearly, the searches that you've undertaken and the terms that you have entered and the number of results that you have got back. So it would be very easy for us to document that and present that so that anybody else could come along and replicate the search if that was a requirement for your research or assignment. You are tasked with creating a search table. This is one way of presenting it. You would clearly state the search number, the search terms, and the results that you returned. And you can see now from my PubMed example that it would be simply a case of copying and pasting that information from PubMed to include the terms that you've used and the number of results, and to do that in a very clear and systematic way. So search 1, search 2, then search 3 states that we combined search 1 with the Boolean AND operator and search 2, and then finally we added, for an example, a publication date of the last year to give us a number of 546 results. Very clear and systematic, and importantly reproducible if that is a requirement for your research. Another extremely useful benefit of using a database is the ability to save your searches and also set up alerts. Now, most databases will give you the option to save your searches so that you can come back to them at a later point in time and not have to enter your searches all over again, and also set up alerts so that you can be notified when any new research is published that matches your search criteria. So each database will look slightly different and will require you to log in to create an account to save them for future. But in PubMed, for example, I could click the results that I'm interested in saving, and then I could either, for example, email them to myself, so I have a selection of them. I could send them to a reference manager of my choice, and if you're interested in learning how to create your references and bibliography in one click, do check out my course on using Mendeley and how that can really supercharge your referencing process. The other option is to save, and you have your selection saved there, and you can either create a file or you can save them within PubMed if you have an account already created. As I say, each database will look slightly different and have its own features and functionality, so I'm not going to go into depth of showing you how to save and export and curate your saved searches in each and every database. But for PubMed, I will include links to their very helpful frequently asked questions and interactive tutorials on how to conduct the most efficient searches for your research. I'm going to take the opportunity to talk to you about another search technique that we call citation searching or cited searching, which is a great way of finding relevant research in a field or subject by looking at what an article has referenced and who has since used that article as a reference. So for example, you might find an article published in 2018. You can do a citation search to find the articles that the 2018 article has referenced, but also find out if anyone has since referenced the 2018 article. Now this is useful as it can turn up relevant articles from unexpected disciplines. You are not dependent on using the author's use of terminology, and it allows you to follow up discussion and argument and to see how an argument or idea has developed. It's a really great aid for assembling a bibliography or recommended reading list, and a useful way of finding other possible search terms you can use to find information. So let's take a look at how that works. In PubMed, if you're interested in looking at the cited count of a particular article, we can click on the title, and then as I scroll down the page, you can see we have cited by and 65 articles. So since the article was published, these 65 articles have also made reference to the original article. So it's a great way of finding perhaps more up-to-date research that you wouldn't have found through your keyword searching, and you can also scroll down the page to look at the references. So those are the papers that this original article has used to inform their discussion and arguments. As you can see, most of them are linked, so you can follow the trail to look at not only the references but also the cited by count. And that works on other databases. Now it is important to remember that the number of times an article is cited doesn't always equate to good quality. And this may be that the research in question may be in a very small field and therefore may not attract so many citations, but the research is still valid. Controversial research papers may attract multiple citations, but this may not guarantee the quality of the researchers. And finally, some researchers may self-cite. A piece of research may appear to have a lot of citations, but they may be self-citations to other papers and work carried out by the original author. So a useful tool, but just to have an awareness that the number of times a paper is cited doesn't always mean that it is of a high quality. You can also use this in Google Scholar by entering the title of the paper if you're looking for something specific or some keywords, and then you can see here below the title and the abstract the fact that this has been cited by 112 papers, Clicking on that will present you with those papers for you to interrogate and assess. If you are interested in lots more tips and techniques for getting the very best use out of Google Scholar for your academic research, do check out my course. So throughout this course I have given you the foundations for you to succeed in your literature searching. It's very important that you actually practice these techniques to get used to how they work, the impact that they have on your searches. I would say that searching can be quite frustrating by the process, and I often get queries saying I can't find anything, or I found too much, or I found too little, and what we don't often realize is that it may take maybe a dozen searches to yield helpful and successful results. So don't worry about that, just trust in the process and the techniques that we've discussed today, and remember that searching is a case of trial and error. Stick at it and you will find what you want as long as you trust the process. And my top tips for your successful literature searching is, first and foremost, to plan your search. That's really important for you to not only prevent you from wasting time, but to actually find the results that you need and consider. Think about your searches and try different ones. Be open to pursuing different keywords and different avenues of research depending on the results you get. Don't be too fixed on the terms that you additionally identified at the beginning. And consider your results as a whole. So if you have some familiarity with the topic, you may be able to identify whether well-known researchers are represented in your results, or research that you were already aware of, and perhaps if not, then why not? And consider whether your results appear to be a fair representation of what you would have expected to find, or whether there are elements missing. Now, don't just rely on the one resource. I've demonstrated PubMed today. There are other databases out there. Consider what's available to you, particularly if you are studying, and find the most relevant database for your question, because that is going to guarantee that you find relevant results. And don't just rely on one. Consider a few depending on the topic that you're interested in researching. Have an understanding that if you identify a few articles or research papers, these will probably lead you to other relevant research. Consider looking at the reference list and following up on any interesting papers. Look at the authors. If you find some key authors, do a quick Google search of them and see what their other output is and interrogate their work. And also think about the impact that a particular article has had. So if an article was published and other authors have used that for their research, you can do what's called a cited by search. And remember that searching is not a linear process. It's not enough to do just one search and expect that you'll return everything for your research requirements. You will need to repeat your search in multiple databases and continue to review your results and refine your search and adapt your techniques as you go along. And finally, allow plenty of time, as this is but one part of your research. You're going to need to read the papers, analyze them, interpret them, and then write them up. So do allow plenty of time, because this will take you longer than perhaps you may have considered. Now, one of the most frustrating things when it comes to conducting a literature search for your studies is actually finding a really useful and interesting piece of research, but then being unable to access the full text or the PDF. So how do you go about that in the best possible manner and in the most efficient way possible? So let's give you a bit of background. You're searching on Google and you're likely to come across things that you can't automatically access the full text of. Now, although Google Scholar is free to search, most of the content is not freely available. But what it does do is that Google Scholar does its best to find copies of restricted articles that appear perhaps behind a paywall, behind a publisher's paywall, or as part of a university library subscription. Tries to give you access to them via finding copies of restricted access in public repositories, which often contain earlier drafts or preprints, as we call them. Now, if you are at an academic or research institution, you can also set up a library connection to highlight items which are available through your institution subscriptions via Google Scholar, and we'll look at that very shortly. And we would call that Google Library Links. You also have the Google Scholar button, which is a Chrome extension which allows you to search Google Scholar, and if you can find any full text articles. You have the command search type PDF, but you also have a growing range of browser extensions, which we're going to talk about all of these on the screen now, but particularly the browser extensions, which can help facilitate, get you access to the full text of research papers. They are simply plugins for your web browsers that do all the hard work for you without you having to hunt high and low for a particular article, or perhaps go to your institutional library and search on a title by title basis. So we're going to have a look at each of these right now to give you the ability to attempt to access research for free. Google Scholar Library Links is the ability for you to make a connection with your home institution or research institution. So this is only of interest to you if you are currently studying at a college or university and you want to access any research that you discover via Google Scholar via your library institutional access. Now, to make that connection and that link, you'll need to go to Google Scholar and then go to the top left hand corner menu. From here you're going to select Settings and then Library Links, which will give you the option to search for your library. Once you have found your library from the list, it is simply a case of selecting the relevant one and noting the text at the bottom, which states that online access to library subscriptions is usually restricted to patrons of that library. So if you are studying with them, you may need to log in with your library password to access that content. So if you do have any questions about this and you are studying at a college or university, best to get in contact with your librarian, who will be more than happy to outline the process to get these library links connected successfully. So once you've done that, clicking on Save will ensure that you retain those settings. And then for any future searches that you run, if you are a member of an institution, on the right hand side here you'll get a link that says either access the full text or find the full text at and then your local institutional library. The Google Scholar button is a browser extension that you can download for your respective browser, and it gives you the ability to look up research articles as you browse the web. So the extension, once you've added it, will add a browser button for easy access both to Google Scholar from any web page, and it will also give you the ability, if you are studying and affiliated with a university library, to find the full text on the web very quickly and easily. To ensure that you are using it successfully, please follow the guidance available from your respective web store and get in contact with your local institutional librarian for further guidance with using the Google Scholar Library button. Now, when you are trying to find the PDF of an article, you can simply use the Google Scholar command search type :PDF to attempt to retrieve the article in question or PDFs based upon the query that you're entering. So for the example here, I've done a broad keyword search, but I have insisted that all of my results only return research that has the PDF attached to it. So I've typed type :PDF. As you can see here, it will attempt to retrieve the PDF and clearly indicate that on the right hand side of the page, and clicking on that will link you through to the article in question. So that's the Google Scholar command search for file type and PDF. So there are a range of browser extensions available to you that will help you to identify and access the full text of research. Now the first one I'm going to talk about today is Unpaywall, unpaywall.org. Now it's an open access browser extension to find the full text from over, as it says there, 50,000 publishers and repositories. Now for you, it is simply a case of going to the website and clicking on Get the Extension. It will locate your browser that you're using and send you to the respective App Store to download the extension. So I'm using Firefox today, and it will take me to the Firefox add-ons page. I'm going to add that to Firefox, and you can see that it has been added successfully as it appears in my toolbar with the Unpaywall extension. So Unpaywall is great to enable you to attempt to access the research literature in a timely fashion, and importantly, it is a legal extension that is fair and sustainable, and it searches the index for open access articles. Now, to use that, once you've installed the browser extension, you would forget about it until you actually needed it. And once you have done your literature searches and identified some relevant papers, and you're viewing the output or the abstract of the individual paper, you will notice, because I have the Unpaywall extension added to my browser, the little padlock, the unlock and padlock symbol, and it's green, which indicates to me that this is available freely, legally somewhere. So by clicking on that link, it will connect me to the full text, and as you can see here, enables me to read that, to download that, and save that for future use. Now, there are a range of other open access or find the full text browser extensions that are available to use for you. Another one is called simply the Open Access button, and I'll put a link in the description, and it works in a very similar way to Unpaywall. You have other options if you are currently studying and affiliated with a university. An institutional library, for example, may have a subscription to something called Lean Library, or perhaps EndNote Click, which was formerly known as Copernio, another way to access research papers, or perhaps something called LibKey Nomad. So all of these work predominantly with an institutional subscription available via your library. So if you are unsure, ask your local librarian. But Unpaywall is my top pick for getting you access to freely available research in a legal fashion where it exists. It's not always going to get you access to the full text, but it is going to really improve your outcome overall. Another option available to you if you are currently studying is to use your university or college interlending or interlibrary loan service. Now, most academic institutions will give you the ability to request for free, in most cases, a copy of an article or perhaps even a book, a conference proceeding, and so on, for free via your institution. So again, it's a case of asking your librarian, do they offer an interlending or interlibrary loan service, to see if you can get access to that piece of research that you cannot do either via Google Scholar or any of the browser extensions that I have already mentioned today. So it's worthwhile asking your local librarian whether they have that service available to you. Hello and welcome to the authoritative course on Mendeley Reference Manager. This course will act as your guide in becoming a power user of Mendeley. Learn with me, an experienced educator who has taught thousands of students how to save time with Mendeley over the last decade in the higher education sector, and who has achieved the Mendeley Advisor certification. Have you been manually creating your references? Have you spent countless hours trying to cite in the right style, only to discover that you had done it all wrong? And do you want to save time? And if you've answered yes to some of these or all of these questions, then Mendeley Reference Manager is a free tool that will enable you to create in-text citations and your reference or bibliography list at the click of a button. It will also enable you to store and organize your very own library. So learn with me, and you'll be able to download Mendeley and create an account, add references to your library with one click using the Mendeley web importer. You will know how to install the Microsoft Word plugin that will enable you to automatically generate your citations in the style of your choice and change that style with a click of a button. There are no requirements to join the course. We only ask that you come open-minded and ready to learn. And do feel free to take a look through the course description, and we look forward to seeing you inside. So what are you waiting for? Get instant access to this course and start your journey to improve your research workflow and save yourself time. Enroll today, and I look forward to seeing you inside this course. To demonstrate the use of the web importer, we have run a search in Google Scholar, and I've been presented with my results. From this point, I can click on the Web Importer button, and I will need to sign in the first time I use it using my username and password that we created earlier. Once that is done, you'll be logged in to your Mendeley account, and those entries on that page will be pulled automatically through and be visible within the Web Importer pop-up on the right hand side. As you can see presented here, we have the bibliographic information, the PDF, and the ability to edit the record at this point. So if you notice the details aren't quite correct, or you need to add some additional information that isn't there, you can do so at this point by clicking on the Edit button. Once you're happy with that, you can then proceed to select either all of those references and send them to an individual folder. You could also individually select those titles which you want to import, and by clicking on the Add button, that will capture that information and import those into your Mendeley library as denoted by the tick symbol next to PDF and reference. I've closed that down now, and when I go back into my Mendeley desktop software version, you can see the most recently imported titles are appearing at the top of my page. If they aren't, pressing the sync button will pull those through for you. They've been sent to my All References area, but it's also in my demo folder, as that is where I selected to add those to the collection when using the Web Importer. To insert a citation within your Word document, you need to access the Mendeley site add-in. Place your cursor at the point in your document at which you want to add in your citation and find the corresponding entry from your Mendeley library and click on Insert Citation. As you can see, that has then entered this particular citation. You can replicate that process to add in all of the citations that you need to, ensuring that you're placing your cursor at the point at which you wish to generate those citations. So that has been an introduction to searching the literature. I really do hope that you have enjoyed it, and I do encourage you to have a go for yourselves, and I hope that you've been of interest to you and that you feel empowered to undertake a successful literature search in the future. And included in the course, I have put together a really handy search table, so if you do need to document your searches in a very systematic fashion, please do feel free to use the template that I have provided. And I've also condensed all of the information that we have discussed today into a worksheet for you to work through when it comes to having a go at searching for your own topic. So do check out the search worksheet that will guide you through the process in a very clear and systematic fashion.